I'm right in the middle of your book, which I'm enjoying immensely, by the way. And you often talk, because you're a clinical psychologist, you often talk in very practical terms about the things that work, the things that make life better. And yet, I have found that people who can't make sense of even the most practical ideas, if they don't have an underlying sense, they can't follow those ideas through.
Right.
And
That's why you have to get up to the abstractions as
well.
Exactly.
You have to get up to the abstractions, but the abstractions require a certain amount of faith. They require a certain amount of faith, for instance, that the logos is good, that the good is better than the chaos. Where do you direct people's faith? Because I'm a little confused about it. I hear you kind of speaking in sort of Jungian ideas, that there's that these gods are kind of, are they within us? Is this a model within the collective unconscious, or do you believe there is something out there that we are responsible?
Depends what you mean by out there.
Well, I mean,
no, but I really mean that. It's like, well, what do you mean? Do you mean out there in space? Doesn't look like it. We've gone a long ways out there. It's about 13.5 billion light years now.
Is there something other than space and time in which, on which this world is supported?
Good question.
Thanks.
How to answer that? I've had experiences that I can't describe that would suggest that. For me personally, I don't know what that would mean universally. Well, I think we may have. And I don't know about that. I mean, the reason that I've tried to stay within the psychological or even the biological domain in my discussions of religion is because that's an area that I have some expertise in. And I do think that you can track the evolution of religious ideas to way down. And so there's a hierarchy of values, and whatever's at the top of the hierarchy of values is in some sense de facto God. What happened with, because it's the thing that you're serving, it's the thing to which you give obeisance.
But even for there to be a hierarchy of values, doesn't there have to be something above the values themselves to which those values tend?
I think that you could say yes. I think the highest value in the hierarchy isn't exactly a value. It's the process by which values are generated.
Okay.
It's a strange thing. Well, the thing is if you think about the Christian symbolic universe psychologically, you have something at the pinnacle, and the pinnacle is Christ, whatever Christ represents, and the Christ is the King of Kings. And that actually means something from an abstraction perspective. It's like, well, if you took a lot of people who deserve to be king because of their positive qualities, let's say, they actually embody a valid sovereignty. And so you have a dozen kings, and they're all great kings, and then you distill out of them what makes them great as kings. What you distill out of that is that symbolic image. Right. And that actually started to happen long before Christianity. You saw it in the ancient Egyptian representations of Horus and Osiris, for example, because the pharaoh, the Egyptian pharaoh, was actually the embodiment of the conjunction of Horus and Osiris. And so the Egyptians were trying to puzzle this out in their imagistic way. And in Mesopotamia, the god Marduk, who I already talked about, who was magic words and attention, he had eyes all the way around his head, like Horus, because Horus, the Egyptian god, was an eye who could pay attention, right? The famous eye, pay attention. And people were already trying to work out imagine that each tribe had its god. And then all the tribes got together, and then the gods had a war, because how else do you settle which tribe god is going to win? And so there was a conflict of gods, abstractions, across huge spans of time, thousands and thousands of years. And the gods organized themselves into a hierarchy. And some god came out on top. It was Marduk in the Mesopotamian case. And the Mesopotamians figured out, well, which god should be the top god? Oh, the god of magic words, the god that pays attention, the god that confronts chaos and makes habitable order. It's like, hey, that's not bad. That's a principle of sovereignty. It's also a principle of divinity. It's also the hallmark of the soul. And you can lay all that out, both biologically and evolutionarily. And then the question emerges, well, is there something other than that? Like, does that point to something else? And this, I don't know about this. This is where our knowledge sort of ends. But here's an idea. It's sort of a lateral idea. So imagine that there's the idea of God the Father. What might that be? Well, here's how human sexual selection works, as far as I can tell. And this is what separated us from chimpanzees, by the way, over evolutionary time. It separated me
from my friends in Costa Rica. That's what we did.
So all the men get together, and they're doing something useful. And all the men vote on who the most useful man is at doing that useful thing. Okay, and so he gets to go up to the top of the hierarchy. Well, then you could imagine the man who's most useful across multiple hierarchies. That's even a better ideal. But we'll stick with one hierarchy. The men all get together and they vote on who's the best man. So it's like the spirit of man votes on the best man. That's who the women sleep with. Right, yeah. Right. So it's so interesting because what happens is we get together with our consciousness of what it means to be human, and we vote on who's superior among us, and we promote them to mating status, and the women peel from the top. And that is how it works. So then you might say, well, people think, well, evolution is a random process. You kind of hear that. No serious biologists believe that because it's not random. The generation of mutations, the generation of variation is random, possibly, at least quasi-random, but the selection mechanism, that's bloody well not random. It's not random at all. And something's been driving it for a long time. And insofar as human beings have hierarchies of value, and insofar as you dominate the hierarchy of value, you're in a better position to reproduce, which you certainly are, especially if you're male, then the hierarchy of value determines reproductive success. So then you have the action of a discriminatory consciousness across an extended expanse of time that's actually driving human evolution. It's like, well, how closely associated is that with God? Well, I don't know. Does the literal and the metaphorical touch at that point?
Well, that's the question.